one of the most important things is the actual mix you're putting inside the bag. Now, what you need to think about is the bag being nice and compact when you're tying it. So what you don't want to use is huge pellets. You don't want to use like 8 or 10 mil pellets or anything. They won't go into the bag very well. So we use a very fine mix. And D&A have got the ideal answer to that, which is the crayfish mini mix, which I've used loads of different pellets, and over the last like 10-15 years I've been using solid bags, and this crayfish mini mix is probably the best mix I've used for solid PVA bagging. Absolutely stinks. Nice small pellets that pack down really nicely into the bag. The other thing I add to that, as if you couldn't make this mix any better, is some of the krill meal as well, which you can see that on my hand there. The krill meal, don't open that up in your house because your missus will not be happy, because it does not smell good, but the fish absolutely love it, and it adds extra attraction to the bag, really disperses into the water really well, and helps the fish home in on the hook bait in your rig. In the bag, as well as the pellet mix there, we obviously put our rig. Now that consists of an inline lead. This one's 3¼ ounces. Inline leads are really important to use. You don't want to use a leg clip or anything like that, because that could tangle in the bag, and it won't sit as neatly inside the bag once you've tied it up. So an inline lead sits nice and neatly in there. It's also a really good effective hooking arrangement, because you've got the whole weight of the lead coming into play. As soon as your hook length tightens up, the heaviest end of the lead there comes off the lake bed and pulls that hook into the fish's mouth. Moving on to the hook lengths, 3 to 4 inch hook length. Braid, again, you don't want a stiff material, because that's going to mean it's going to kink inside the bag. So it's a nice supple braid, means it sits in the bag nicely, doesn't loop up or kink or anything like that. Onto a nice sharp hook. I like a wide gape straight point hook for that. Very sharp. It's a size 6, and then coupled with, on there we've got our 12mm PB pop-up. I either use a 10 or 12mm pop-up in the bag. Because you've got very small food items in there, what you don't want to do is fish a real big hook bait either. So you don't want like a 15-16mm pop-up in a bag full of little small pellets. So we want a nice small pop-up that gets hoovered up with the pellets as the fish is feeding over the rig. Just going to go through making the bag. I use a rapid load system. That enables me to tie them up really quickly, no wastage of PVA at all. You're not faffing around tying like PVA string or anything around there at all. It's just a real quick, easy, effective method. Takes a little bit of getting the knack of, but once you've tied up a few, I dread to think how many of these I've tied up over the last few years, hundreds and hundreds. Once you've tied a few up, they're really easy to do. So you've got the loader here with the collar. Put the collar over the loader and you get your bag, open the bag up and just slide the loader inside there, and then take the collar off. The loader then expands and holds the bag on there nice and securely. We get rid of any, make sure it's not overlapping or anything, make sure that's sitting nicely all the way around there. And again, there's a nice little ridge on the loader that you just put the bag to make sure that it is sitting in the right place. What we do then is we just blow inside there. That just opens the bag up and enables us to put our rig in there. Okay. First thing we do is we get the hook bait first, and we set that down across the bottom of the bag, like so. So it's just sitting nicely across the bottom with the pop-up in the corner. And then I put a little bit of pellet in there, not too much. What you want is the lead sitting nicely towards the front of the bag. If you put it too far towards the back, then you'll find it wobbles in the air and doesn't cast very well. So what you need to make sure is you have your lead nice and close to the front of the bag. If you're only fishing short range, that doesn't matter. You can move the lead a little bit further back if you want to. But if you're looking to cast these a long way, and you can cast them well over 100 yards, then you want that lead as close to the front of the bag as possible. So we've got a little bit of pellet on top of the hook bait. Lead settles down on top of the pellet there, and then we just fill up with a bit more pellet in the bag like so. Give it a little bit of a shake, make sure it's all surrounding the lead, you can't see the lead or anything, and make sure it's packed down. A little bit more, and we're about there. So you want to leave a decent gap It's probably an inch and a half or so between the top of the pellet and the loader, and that gives you enough PVA bag just then to be able to seal it up. So then we twist it down so it pinches the top of the bag there nicely, and then we push that over the bag like so. Then we just lick round the piece of PVA that's around the loader like that, and push that over the bag, and that then sticks to the PVA nicely. You don't want to lick it too much, just so it's lightly damp. Gives it a little bit of adhesion there. We then, just like that, it won't cast very well. So what we need to do is get rid of these corners. So very simply, we just pinch the corner, do a bit like that, get rid of there. You've got no pellets in the corner then, and then just lick that one and then fold it over the end. And then the same again on this side. It's got our hook bait there as well, and again lick that and fold it over like so, and that is our finished bag. You can use bigger PVA bags, they come in lots of different sizes. I don't really see any advantage of that personally. I've used bigger ones. I don't think you really get any advantage. You can cast these a lot further, they cause less disturbance when they're going in the water as well, so I tend to fish with that sort of size bag. I think it's a 60mm wide one. Now, a big part of PVA bag fishing, maybe a reason why some people don't use it so much, is because when you miscast, you have to wind in and then you have to do all that again, and you have to dry your rig off because it's wet, and obviously you don't want it, if you put it in there wet, the bag will start to disintegrate. So what I tend to do is I'll tie a few of these up on leaders. You can see here, this is just on a small leader. It's a 1 foot leader, 30-pound fluorocarbon, and the idea of that is I can actually then attach that with a loop to loop on my main line. So I can turn up, when I turn up to the fishery, I'll have a bag of these like in a food bag like so. You can see I've got a load there ready to go. So the idea is that I can turn up with those in my bucket, find some fish, set up, get my rod out, hook these onto the end, loop to loop, bosh bosh, you're fishing really quickly. No faffing around tying up. You're just able to get your rods out really quickly, same as if you just had a bite. Again, instead of having to dry your rig off, etc., you just take that rig off, unloop it, get a solid bag out of your store there, put that on and get that rod back out nice and quickly. And when you're trying to build big hits of fish, efficiency like that is really important. What you don't want to be doing is sitting there for half an hour with your rod out while you've just miscast and you're having to sort out your rod. If you miscast here, I've got a load ready to go, you just wind it in, take it off, put another one on. Once your rods are out, you can then spend a bit of time drying your rig off, make sure everything's okay, tying a few more up, and then replenishing your supply ready for the next recast or whatever. Okay. We mentioned earlier a little bit before about the different hook baits. I've got a 12mm PB on there, but as I said, it's worth experimenting a little bit. We've also been trying as well the milky malts, the nice fluoros. They're really sort of high attraction, nice and visual. Or sometimes as I said before, I go for maybe a more dull hook, but these are the F7s or an SLK that's a bit more subtle and doesn't stand out so much, especially if the fish have been caught a lot on the high vis hook baits. Using a slightly darker hook bait can get you more bites and get you better hook holds as well. I've noticed sometimes if you're fishing for fish that have been fished for with solid bags and high vis hook baits a lot, they may be a little bit more cautious when they're feeding. Switching to a darker pop-up sometimes gets you those extra bites or gets the fish feeding a bit more confidently around your rig. So that's another thing to consider. So all in all, a really effective setup. Don't be scared and worried about the amount of time it takes you to get everything done, because if you set it up like this with some leaders in advance, you can take your time getting the bags tied up, and the more you tie, the quicker and easier they become as well. So it's well worth trying, especially in the fishery you're fishing. People aren't using them. If you're fishing there and everyone's using boilies, a lot of boilie and what have you maybe, then something a little bit different like a solid bag can pay off and work really well. So it's well worth giving a go.